Alright guys, had to come back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. The team that came second place at this year's World Championship, the New York Subliners, Simp is talking an awful lot about exactly why he feels like they fell short, but also why they did so well at the end of the season. An interesting few words certainly on Atlanta FaZe. Big questions on this FaZe team. What are they going to do after the World Cup? Are they going to actually decide to make a roster change? And Simp says, look, Subliners' practice this year wasn't even that good, but they got the results when it mattered. FaZe's practice is always absolutely spectacular, and there's been a general theory that because their practice is so good, they actually expect to be the best when they come to events. When they actually get punched in the mouth, then they have no plan. Is this a serious problem for FaZe? Is it one of the reasons why, when they go to tournaments, they keep losing when the pressure actually arrives? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, a couple of things on Black Ops 6. There's been a lot of talk about this game over the last few days, lots of leaks about the game over the last few days, and lots of questions. What's the game going to look like? How's it going to play? We've seen footage from the game, obviously, the omnidirectional movement and all this type of stuff. There's also, I'm going to mention Black Ops 3 again, there's also a slide feature where if you, let's say, are walking backwards, it kind of works like Counter-Strike. If you guys have played Counter-Strike, you can use the W, A, S, and D keys. You can move at maximum speed in all directions, depending on what key you press, and it actually feels really natural in CS. That seems to be the way that it works in this new COD as well, where you can, instead of sprinting forwards, you can also move backwards and sideways at basically the same speed, and therefore you can also dive backwards, or you can slide backwards, or whatever the case is. And Black Ops 3 style, if you slide, and then you jump again, and then you slide, let's say you're going down a hill, you can actually kind of chain the slides together. So there's some interesting ideas on the movement in this game, absolutely. But the question is it going to be like Cold War, or is it going to be like some of the more Modern Warfare games that we've seen over the last few years? Again, it looks like for now, Ninja, as in Dead Silent, is not actually silent. So, yeah, here we go again. And I don't really know why. Hopefully they can fix it. But it seems like in this build of the game, Dead Silent is not actually fully Dead Silent, which is just like the classic catering for noobs thing, but it is what it is. And then there's even talk that actually, in some ways, it's more MW19-esque than it is Cold War-esque, and Ghost of Hope kind of discusses this in the replies about the fact that it's not a 150 health game. Now, I will say, yes, it's only 100 health and not 150 like Cold War was, but it does feel like the guns kill at a similar speed. They just do less damage, I think. It seems that way to me, that it might not be 150 health, but the guns do less damage to compensate, and therefore the time to kill still seems relatively reasonable. But, yeah, I will say there's some concern on this. Ghost of Hope even says he doesn't think the maps are that good. So, yeah, time will tell, but I thought that I would just follow up some of the positivity around Black Ops 6 over the last few days with, a slice of reality, as it always happens here in the Call of Duty world. Let's get on to the top 20, by the way. Another couple of players go through here. Of course, we had number 11, I think, was aBeZy. Number 12, I'm pretty sure, was Kenny. CleanX just gets into the number 10 spots. I think he was really good this year. Not as good as Scrappy, obviously, but from an SMG perspective, definitely right up there. He was the MVP of the first event of the season, and his numbers all year, honestly, were, really good. Championship, the World Championship, he didn't have his great results, right? And I think that's probably what's holding him back from being higher, because over the course of the season, I would have said that he was, right up there in the conversation for, near enough best SMG in the entire game, and certainly that was true Major 1. I think it was, apart from his Search and Destroy that was pretty weak, Major 2 and Major 3, his impact in the hardpoint especially was pretty mega, and then Stage 4 turned it up again, I thought, and had, certainly when the new maps came in, maps like Vista, CleanX was just unreal at. I mean, Vista especially, he had some ridiculous numbers. Dropped to, 46 kills at one point. That was a CDL record for hardpoint damage. And then Champs, actually, his, overall numbers don't look that bad. His Search and Destroy was actually significantly better here, but it was the respawns where he just had a couple of poor maps that I'm sure he'll be thinking about, because Envoy wasn't that good this year, CleanX really needed to be next level, and most of the time he was. Super fast-paced, super impactful, and given that we compare CleanX and aBeZy a lot in terms of playstyle, CleanX, I think, was just straight up better this year, and, that was a very difficult thing to actually accomplish. Number 9, though, goes to Dan Ghosty, and I think this is pretty much on the money. I don't think you can put him any higher, really, but you don't want to put him too much lower than this. I think I had him at about 10th on my list, so this is probably about right. He was really good, of course, this year for Los Angeles Thieves. Their best player by quite some margin. Had the occasional, not great series, but apart from that, he was pretty much always on the money, and he just got better and better, I think, as the year went on as well. His numbers started off the year pretty good, and then as time went on, he was just, getting better and better. Had some, pretty impressive numbers as well. And obviously with Ghosty, it's not also about the numbers. numbers, it's also about the leadership, the other factors in play. And look, last year's OpTic team, Ghosty, was a key reason why they actually turned it around and became pretty good in that part of the season after they signed Ghosty, which was unexpected to many. And this year, I think the same's true with Los Angeles Thieves. The top 4 at Champs, very impressive all things considered. And like, these are the numbers over the course of the season. Just insane consistency as well. Like, if you look at the fact that his kills per 10 was like literally the same at stage 3 and stage 4. His KD was basically the same. His damage to 10 was basically the same. Like, he was just really efficient. Like, regardless of who he plays, Ghosty's always going to give you pretty much the same stuff, and you know, consistently around high 80s, 90 or so rated cards. That ain't bad at all. So very impressed by Ghosty this year, and of course that's the debate in the league, is like, Ghosty is probably going to end up, well, he is going to end up, based on our list, the highest rated player not on a top 4 team. So does he end up on a top 4 team next season, or do Thieves even just become a top 4 team? I mean, that's also possible if they make the right decisions this off season. Maybe if they were to sign Scump, but obviously that was kind of, you know what I mean, formal, for example. Like, if he was to come through, as the rumours potentially are suggesting, or at least we've talked about it over the last few days, then there might be something in that. Before we get into the Sib stuff, quickly on OpTic, because there's been talk about the practice that's going on. Obviously, OpTic have got into practice over the last couple of days. Hixie says, I miss scrimming, I'm unwell. Like, you know, Scrappy says, no, you don't miss it. This is the most boring thing I've ever played. Now, I think for Scrappy's point of view, and to be fair for the other team's point of view, this might well be true. It's incredibly rare that a team will go to the World Championship, will end out their World Championship run, and then play the same game again. It's almost always the case that the teams, after their champs run is over, put the game down and never play it again. Maybe MW3 will be played again by the pros in 5 years' time when they play an off-season tournament and they want a bit of a throwback chal or something like that. But almost always, the game is basically never played again. They've grinded the game, they're fed up with the game, and, you know, they want to call it a day. Obviously, it's always how it is. But Scrappy and the boys, they've got to play it again, and they've already played it to death this year, and now they've got to scrim the game again. I can't imagine that Scrappy's too happy about it. Clearly he isn't. But Shotzzy has apparently said on stream yesterday that the streams will be live, basically, right? Because they've been scrimming since Monday. Today's now Thursday. And they didn't stream their practice over the last few days, probably because it was their first couple of days back. They didn't really want to. Kenny did say they'd like to stream them just because they want to, you know, show people what's up. They know that it's not really a big deal. Everyone knows what they're doing anyway, right? I mean, OpTic literally won champs, so everyone's watching their VOD going into the World Cup. If anyone's watching anyone's VOD, that's whose VOD they're going to be watching. So it's not like anyone's going to learn anything from watching OpTic's practice. It's more so about whether there's going to be overreactions or whatever, right? Like, if OpTic streams their first day of scrims back, it might not have gone too well. But the idea that apparently they're going to turn them on today does make the case that maybe they're feeling pretty confident, right? Because if their scrims have been going well over the last couple of days, that's a sign that they'll probably turn them on, I suppose. You can look at it that way anyway. So apparently it's going to be New York and it's going to be Boston. I don't know what's happening with Boston after what we talked about earlier on today, but yeah, that's the general feeling right now. But I wanted to share a clip here from Sib on Attach's podcast that he's done, the Stay Attached podcast. Attach has been killing it, by the way, with these episodes. Honestly, like, if you guys didn't see the episode that I did with Attach, like, what a great interview, great episode. I really enjoyed my time on his show, and yeah, feel free to check that out. It's on his channel after this video if you want to. But he's been doing so many episodes over the last, like, few days. His season ended, and he was like, you know what, I'm just gonna pump out the best, like, interview series of all time. Gets Kara on there, gets Sib on there, among many others. And Sib had a few very interesting words, I thought, to say on their practice, right? Of course, Cloud9 Sib, as it is now, going into the World Cup. Because their practice, he says, isn't actually that good, New York. He feels like their practice is not as good as the way they actually play when it comes to proper matches. FaZe, it's probably the other way around.
Major 3, I think we should have won, but we made the same mistakes that we make in practice, which came to bite us in the ass. So,
Yeah.
But as far as like me going into the weekend, I really didn't think we had a for sure chance to win, just because of our scrims have never been good throughout the whole year, and that's kind of been a thing for them. Even before I got there, they weren't that good at scrims. They're always way better on land or whatnot. So it's kind of hard. No, it is hard to definitely have confidence in like being on the same page every single time.
Yeah.
And on where everyone's in autopilot when, you know, in practice it's not really like that all the time. So due to that inconsistency, I really didn't think that, okay, like we're for sure getting first. Like if I was FaZe, then I would be like, okay, we're for sure getting first. But um, it's kind of weird just because the fact that like you're on either side of the spectrum. You could be really, really good in scrims and you go
Yeah.
to game day and then you bottle it up and you don't end up winning, even though in scrims you know how to do it. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, whereas you don't really do the right stuff in scrims, it's not consistent all the time, and then you go to an event and then magically it's like there.
It works.
You know
Everything
what I
just
mean?
clicks.
So
like it's just yeah.
it's weird because then you go back afterwards and like you don't do it, and then it's like I thought we knew how to do this, right?
Yeah.
So either side of the spectrum is a little bit weird. I just think that LAN and traveling and playing in front of a crowd just brings out a whole different game. Like we went on I think 10 hardpoint win streak or something like that. We didn't lose a hardpoint.
Yeah.
And hardpoint's been like our worst game mode. So I think we just ended up catching flow, and I think that's kind of all a team really needs to just really win, just because especially if the teams in the top four, everyone's good, everyone's competitive. So whoever really just has flow, you know, is kind of probably whoever just takes that stride is probably going to win it. But I do think like FaZe is probably the most consistent in practice, so they probably have the best chance every single time. So yeah.
So it's no secret at all that FaZe's scrim results are always absurd. This, for example, now this was during Cold War when FaZe were at their best, but these were their results from easyMac when he was their analyst back in the Cold War days. And, well, they played scrim series, they won 241 of them, they tied 20 scrim series, they lost 15 scrim series, and they had like a 99 and 41 map count with 3 players when they had COVID or whatever. So, like, it's always been the case that FaZe's results in practice are always mega. This has always been the case. It's been a known thing. And it's a theory, and I think even Slasher talked about this a while ago, as to, maybe it was talked about on the Flank by Eggs or something, there was an idea that maybe FaZe, because they win all their scrims so comfortably, they just think they're the best team, which is fine to think you're the best team. But when they go to an event, other teams play them stronger than they will in practice, and all of a sudden they kind of get caught off guard, and when the pressure's on, then things start to fall through. There's a feeling that in practice, they're never up against it, you know? They're never like backs against the wall or anything like that. So when they actually are at a tournament, they're just not used to it, and therefore they lose. Maybe there's something to be said on that. I think there's an argument to be made. I mean, Sib kind of seems to imply, right, that maybe, yeah, there's, because he says, yeah, FaZe go into these tournaments believing they're the best team because they're always dominating in scrims. Subliners scrims aren't always the best, and that can be good or bad, I think, on some levels. So therefore the point is, well, do FaZe need to like give themselves more of a disadvantage? I think this is what maybe Slasher talked about a while ago, that he said when he practices, he likes to try and play at a disadvantage, i.e. let the other team host all the time, because if FaZe are the ones hosting the scrims and they're winning the scrims, then they're kind of living life on easy mode in a way. And when they get to like a big tournament, in a big pressure game, certainly in a grand final, then that starts to affect them. So I think that's like a theory. Maybe it's not true, but it's a theory that's going around that FaZe need to actually lose more scrims, like whatever that means, but like whatever disadvantage you can put yourself out, like give yourself an additional 20 ping, I don't know, use the ping tool to your own disadvantage or something, and maybe that'll help them. But my feeling is that for this FaZe team, it might be just too far gone, but frankly it depends what happens at the World Cup to some degree. Like if FaZe come into the World Cup and they absolutely destroy the competition, I don't think they will, but if they were to, then they're probably going to stick it out anyway. But yeah, very much interested to your thoughts on all this stuff as always in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.